Hello and welcome to Connected episode 258. It is made possible by our sponsors, Eero, Hello, and DoorDash. I am Stephen Hackett, and I am joined for the first time in a long time by Mr. Federico Viticci.
Hello. Hi.
Welcome back.
This is not the bot speaking. This is actually me.
You heard that, huh?
That's really caught on.
Isn't that what a bot would say?
Yeah, that's true. He's become self-aware.
Well, that's up to you to decide. Maybe I mastered the, artificial intelligence of my replicant.
Wow.
And that's who you're doing a podcast with. Who knows?
Maybe.
Whatever works for you, man.
Yeah. And Myke Hurley is here as well.
Hello. I'm in a cupboard.
Explain.
So I'm still in San Francisco, California. I'm leaving this evening. And the hotel room that I'm in is very echoey. So I have recorded 2 shows so far from inside of a wardrobe where the minibar is. There's like a minibar and like
Are you drinking?
No.
Right now?
No.
Okay.
That's like a whole other thing. I'll get to that in a minute. So I'm in a very small room. I will send you both a picture of me in the small room. It's like it is a wardrobe. It has the minibar and the safe in it. And I'm using the ironing board as a desk.
It's good.
Because
it's a life hack. There's
no desk, obviously, because it's a wardrobe. Why would they put a desk in it? So that's where I am. But the problem was I was recording before this. So I thought, I know what I'll do. I will use my very powerful external battery pack to power my MacBook Pro. But the MacBook Pro would not accept that. It would start the charge and then the charge would just stop again. Even though it should be powerful enough to do it, but I don't know why that's not working. Steven said sometimes it doesn't work. I don't know why. So now I have my laptop. I mean, there's no power in the cupboard, right? So now my laptop is outside the cupboard being powered, and I am inside with my iPad getting real work done.
There's probably power behind that mini fridge somewhere, but you don't want to unplug that or they'll charge you for the whole thing.
You should have unplugged the mini fridge.
I had to turn off the mini fridge because otherwise it would make a noise. And it looks like that the power is built in behind the wall, probably to stop me from unplugging it, because the cable from the mini fridge goes into the wall. And I'm not going to start trying to break the wall down just to get power.
You should have ripped the cable off the wall. You should have done that.
I don't know
Insurance is going to cover that for you.
No, I don't think that's true. Ripping the cable, I don't know why that would help me in any... Well, how it's like, I can't just take the cable from the
even if out
the
of
fridge
spite,
and plug it. Oh,
it'll make you feel better.
What? But who am I spiting? No, but But anyway, I also have...
I don't know.
I have limited beverages here. I have a very small amount of water because that's just where I am in my life. So maybe at some point in the episode I'll break into the minibar. There is water in there, is what I'm saying. But we'll see how that goes. We can check in for frequent updates on my minibar situation if you want.
Yeah, I'm taking a look at the picture right now. Don't touch those peanuts or you're gonna die.
All right, good. I'll get my hand out of the peanut jar, so that's good news.
Everything else should be fine. I see potato chips. Nice. Okay.
So I'm sure it's... Would you like some prices?
Please.
So, what would you like to know? The price of the chips?
Yeah, and the M&Ms maybe. What are the M&Ms?
The M&Ms are $14.
Oh,
That seems like a lot.
It's a lot for M&Ms. the kettle chips are $5. That's an expensive bag of chips. The water that I may need, where is that on this list? $8. That's a very expensive bottle of water. Which is not cold anymore either, which, I feel like I should have to complain about.
because someone turned it off.
There's a can of Blue Bottle coffee in here. And a bottle of Casa Noble tequila. We'll see where the episode goes.
Just don't eat while on the show because it's disgusting. Never do that. Otherwise, you.
Yeah, I know you get very upset about that. I never eat on shows, but I wouldn't do that.
Please. I know.
Now I really want to, but I'm not going to. Do you get upset when people eat on phone calls, or is it just podcasts?
No, I get upset with all kinds of eating noises on any kind of audio transmission.
It's an audio transmission only. Okay.
Well, in real life, I can manage it better. But for example, Sylvia has a real problem, whereas in real life, if somebody makes any weird mouth noises while eating, she gets super itchy and like she can't stand it. My main problem is just audio. I just think it's disgusting. It's like the opposite of ASMR. Like, it's something that makes me want to die inside. So please never do it.
I would love you to actually share how you really feel, which would be good, because I feel like I don't fully understand how you really feel. Yeah, just tell us like exactly how you're feeling about this.
It is sonic torture for me.
That sounds like that's a very good band name. There you go.
It's a promising name for a band.
Moving on, we have been reporting in every once in a while on our beta statuses. We're going to talk about iOS 13.1 here in a few minutes. But I am now I have boarded the beta train on my MacBook Pro. It is running Catalina natively with all my stuff on it. And just today, I put my iPhone on the iOS 13 beta. So I'm living that sweet beta life now with Federico on everything except my iMac Pro, which will remain a Mojave for the foreseeable future. So
why did you put it on your phone?
I wanted to... So some of the stuff I'm thinking about writing about is sort of cross-platform, and I feel like the iPad gives me most of that, but I don't use my iPad as a daily device like y'all do, so I kind of want to experience it on the phone, so...
Wow, okay. The
Seems
shade.
Fine.
I get
Seems
it.
Fine.
Okay.
Yeah. It upgraded really easily and everything seems fine. It's not even hot, so hopefully it's okay. We have a little bit of follow-up from our Family Feud episode, which was last week, episode 257. If somehow you haven't heard that yet, you should go check it out. It was a whole lot of fun. We had a lot of questions about video of the show, and so the venue did record video of the event. I have not gotten the video yet, but if that ever materializes or when it materializes, we will share it far and wide so you can watch the 2-hour event. I think it is helpful. Like, you can totally keep up with it in audio, but I think the video will add an extra element of joy if you enjoyed it. So we'll be sure to mention that here if that gets done and gets on YouTube. But we didn't want to promise it beforehand because I wasn't sure, and it seems like it all got recorded. So, also during that show, Myke's first podcast appearance, which was on Dig Nation in 1976, that was brought up, and I had requested that people send me a photo, if they could find it, of Myke on that show. It was in my mentions within minutes of me saying it on stage. I had Twitter open on my laptop just to make sure, if the live stream died or something. And all of a sudden, these pictures started pouring in. So that is a link in the show notes. And if you haven't seen this picture, you really should.
This is not Myke, right? This is really you?
That's me. That's me.
Wow.
That is actually me. Yeah. It's in the show notes. That is me. That's what I look like without a beard and longer hair.
Well, you were like 12.
I don't know, 18 maybe, 17, 18 probably, something around that time.
Wow.
There is so the way that this person found it, so Ryber found it, is kind of cheating, right? And I knew that this would happen. This came up years ago on the Pen Addict. So you'll see that the image, the Dropler link is 2016. See, that's dated. It's 2016 because I uploaded that photo. So if you are a Pen Addict listener, you know that this was there. So all you had to do was search the show notes. I wondered if that was how anyone was going to pick it up, and that was how it was picked up, is my assumption. But there you go. There's a treat for people.
So if you want to set that as your iPhone wallpaper, let me know.
I, of course, have many more photos of myself from this time, because who doesn't have pictures of themselves, especially when they were that age and MySpace existed. I'm considering maybe unearthing some of these pictures for our St. Jude fundraiser, but we'll see about that.
So let's talk about that. I would like to talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
September is National Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, and listeners will know we've raised money for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital for years now. I've got a son who's a patient there, and thanks to their hard work and amazing technology and science, he is doing really well. But every year we work in September to raise money for the hospital, and we're doing it on an all-new scale this year. Relay FM is St. Jude's first official podcast partnership, which is really cool. We're really excited about that. And you can go to stjude.org/connected to learn more and to donate. And this money goes to funding the hospital. So patients and their families never receive a dime for any care they receive at St. Jude. We've been there for a decade, and it means a whole lot that people around the world support this mission and support this work. So go check it out, stjude.org/connected.
Yep. We're going to be talking about this a bunch over the next couple of weeks, but please go and give some money now. We have already raised over $9,000 to our $75,000 goal. So thank you to everybody that's done that after hearing us talk about it for the first time last week. But we have a lot of exciting things coming throughout September that's going to help us get to the goal that we want to reach.
We should also mention just briefly, August is the end of Relay's membership drive, and our membership special will be coming out September 9th. We're a little bit behind just because there's so much travel. But Federico, do you want to tell the audience what we'll be doing on our membership special?
Well, I was informed. Actually, I am being forced into watching what essentially amounts to an homemade movie of a so-called quote-unquote actor about Steve Jobs. So this is the Michael Fassbender portrait.
You said his name,
if it can be called as such, of Steve Jobs. It's the screenplay by Aaron Sorkin. I have no idea how and why Aaron Sorkin lent his talents to this really amateur production featuring an actor that nobody knows about. Still, I'm guessing that they stole the screenplay, maybe. I don't know. We're going to watch that movie. We're going to share our impressions of that movie. And it's going to be our member special, and you can expect all kinds of hot takes from me and about the movie. And because I already watched it once in Italian, going to watch it again in English.
Wait, you've seen it?
I've seen the movie. It was on TV last year, and I think I sent you guys even a photo of, I took a photo of the TV, and I was like, hey, look at the actor guy.
I don't remember you having seen that.
So I'm going to watch it again in English on my Apple TV, and we're going to talk about it. Especially, I guess we're going to compare it to the Pirates of the Silicon Valley, which we did last year, I think, as the member special episode. So we continue our tradition of Steve Jobs movies with it's just called Steve Jobs. This one, I think, it has no subtitle. No, of course, because it's an amateur production. So yeah.
I believe that it was rumored that, Stephen, you will be attempting to fact check this movie.
Was that rumored?
I believe that was your suggestion, or I suggested it upon you, but I would like you to do your best to fact check this movie.
Yeah, and so there's a link to it, to the IMDb page in the show notes. It is, I could not find it on Netflix, but it is available for like $4 on Amazon Prime Video. I think it'd be fun if you're a Relay FM member to watch it in advance, so you can have it in your mind as we go through and talk about it. We're not liable for any damage you do to your television set while watching it, though.
I'm going to buy it on iTunes just because I think that's funnier.
Oh, I am too. Might as well give in the money. My first impression, if I remember correctly, is that while I watched the movie in Italian, I wished that Seth Rogen played Steve Jobs instead of Fassbender. So we'll see how it goes on my second watch.
I think we need to dig into that, but we haven't got the time right now. We'll talk about that in our member special because I can't fathom this.
All right. Seth Rogen should have been Steve Jobs. That's all.
Then who would have played was? And it just please, Stephen, take us to a break. We can't do this now.
This episode of Connected is brought to you by Eero. Eero is a game changer when it comes to home Wi-Fi because it means you can actually access the internet from anywhere in your house. There's always that one room with the unreliable Wi-Fi connection, or maybe a cupboard while you're podcasting in a closet. And there's nothing more irritating than watching your favorite show or streaming something and then it stopping to buffer. Eero fixes all this because it blankets your home with fast, reliable Wi-Fi, so you can consistently have strong signal wherever you need it. It sets up in just minutes. They have a great iOS app that makes it really easy to get everything going. You just plug it straight into your modem or router and you're off. You can even manage it, like I said, from this iOS app right in the palm of your hand on your iPhone. It lets you do cool stuff like pause the Wi-Fi, maybe when everyone's eating dinner. You can get alerts if any devices try to join your network, and on and on. Eero has fixed all of the Wi-Fi problems. No more dead spots, no more buffering. I've been using Eero in my home for a long time now. I have 2 of the base stations and several of the remote stations that have the lights in them where you plug them in. And it's just great to be able to walk across my house or my yard to come out to the studio and never get dropped. Very often I'm on a phone call or a FaceTime call and am roaming around, and Eero just blankets everything in that nice, warm, cuddly Wi-Fi. You can get your home Wi-Fi fixed as soon as tomorrow. Go to eero.com/weirdfish and enter the code WEIRDFISH at checkout to get free overnight shipping with your order. That's eero.com/weirdfish, code WEIRDFISH at checkout to get your Eero delivered with free overnight shipping. Our thanks to Eero for their support of this show and Relay FM. All right, Federico, you have a tweet up where you have continued to modify your iPad situation. So what have you done this time?
Put more stickers on top of the Smart Keyboard Folio. This is for my 12.9-inch iPad Pro. I bought these stickers from Amazon, and they're probably illegal in the sense that I'm not sure if the original artists for these illustrations and brands are getting paid. But, they were available on Amazon for like €3.
That's Amazon's problem. That's not your problem.
Sometimes you gotta put the morals aside and just be part of capitalism. And that's what I did for these stickers.
Mm-hmm.
So I put more stickers in, and I bought an additional set of kickstands. These are the Spigen metal kickstands that much to Myke's entertainment, we talked about a few months ago. I sent Myke some pictures, and then I did an article about them. They are originally intended as smartphone kickstands, but I sort of, inspired by a fellow Mac Stories reader who disappeared in the void of Twitter. He never texted me or wrote to me again. Somebody inspired me to do this months ago, and I kept doing it. So initially, I only used 2 kickstands to enable software keyboard typing mode. So fold the keyboard, the physical keyboard, under the cover, but use the kickstands to create an angle. So you could use the iPad in software, in touch typing mode. I recently realized that if I put 2 additional kickstands on the opposite end of the cover, I could create a movie watching mode. So let the iPad stand upright and use the keyboard essentially as a base for the entire thing. Both of these modes are possible with the Smart Folio. So not the Smart Keyboard Folio, the regular Smart Folio without the keyboard. The keyboard version doesn't allow this because it doesn't fold.
Right.
It doesn't have the same origami system of the Smart Folio. So with the kickstands, I can sort of replicate that experience. And now I have a movie mode that I can use, when I want to watch some YouTube in bed with the big iPad Pro. I can just put the iPad Pro essentially on my chest, because I'm lying in bed, and make it stand upright with the kickstands and watch some video. I've also tried playing video games with the DualShock controller connected to the iPad Pro in this mode, and it works really well. So I think I'm done with the modding for now, and I actually quite like the results.
I have a concern about your iPad.
Okay.
What has happened to the USB-C port?
Yes, I was just going to ask this. It's all worn away.
I know. I have no idea. I don't do anything particular to that USB-C port. I just plug and unplug cables. Maybe the problem is the cables that I use. Maybe they create too much friction against the edge of the iPad. And that discoloration, I have no idea.
Are you using any of those dongles or anything? Like the hyperdrive? You're not using anything like that?
No, I only test them every once in a while, but I don't usually attach them. I think it must be one of the cables that I have that maybe,
I mean, are you like rubbing it around? So this picture, you have a space gray iPad Pro, and the space gray anodization is like rubbed off, and you can see silver.
But it's not just around the USB-C connector. It's also like below it in a line.
Yeah. Are you just like rubbing the rubbing around?
I'm zooming and enhancing right now on these images. I don't understand what's happened.
I find it very surprising the amount of people that were extremely concerned about this. I don't particularly care about having my devices look used. it's electronics that are meant to be used, are meant to be handled. Like,
I don't have a problem with it. Like, I'm not disappointed at you. I'm just intrigued, right? Because, like, I have 2 space gray iPads and don't have this. Like, so I just wonder, like, what
and
is
you don't
it
have the problem?
that's doing? No, I don't. No.
My iPad's silver, but it's smooth. I don't have any roughness around it. I mean, I don't know. It's strange. It just caught my eye. I agree with you. These things should be used. And like, look, I can't judge anybody for damaging an Apple product. How many iPhones have I been through in the course of this show? But yeah, it just caught my eye. That's all.
No, I get it. I think because of this, and even if only because I actually prefer the look now that I have one. My next iPad Pro is probably gonna be silver. I have the 11-inch iPad Pro is a silver one, and I think I prefer the look of the edges. As time has gone on, I think I prefer that to the space gray. So my next one probably not gonna be space gray, but I don't particularly care about that problem right there in the photo.
Okay.
But yeah, I have no idea. Maybe it's the way that I put it in my bag, or maybe I have no idea. I don't rub anything against the iPad, really. I don't play with the connector in any way. It just, I don't know. Maybe it's one of the cables that I use that has like the top edge is rubbing against the iPad in a weird way. I don't know.
I have a theory. Federico, what does the other side look like? Is it worn away on the other side?
No.
Because I'm wondering if it's your rings.
I'm looking now.
Is it jewelry that's doing it?
It could be. Yeah, totally.
Right? Because you have those big chunky rings that you use that you walk around town with so you can make your marking things. And the way you hold your iPad, I bet you hold it just there, and I bet it's rubbing against it. I'm a detective.
And the right
True Detective
side,
Season 4 features me.
And the and the right side is where I got a salmon slide over. So that totally makes sense that I would bump my fingers with the rings on the right side, and that's what caused the problem. I think you got it.
Did it.
Wow.
Did it.
That's amazing work, Myke. It's really good.
Thank you. I had to go into my mind palace to get that one.
Just while we're talking about silver versus space gray, I think I'm kind of over space gray as a product color. Like, my laptop is silver, my iPad is silver, and I really like it. Like, I like the crisp kind of look, and this sort of thing doesn't happen where if you get nicks and dings and stuff, you don't get silver shining through. I'm in the camp of doing silver on Apple products, not space gray.
I think this is one of those things of like, it's like what you're used to, right? Like you use space gray for a long time, so now you're like, silver seems new and nice again, right? Like, because whenever I see like silver iPads, I'm like, oh man, I forgot about that. So I can understand where you're coming from.
But you had one for 8 years, right? Like before space gray was an option.
Yeah. But I'm a professional, so I have to use space gray.
Oh yeah, it's true. Up next in it's not a tiny topic, it's topic 0.5. Mario Kart Tour coming on September 25th. What's this about, Myke?
Federico, did they change the name of this? I'm sure it was like Mario Kart World Tour or something like that. But Mario Kart Tour is a smartphone game. It's going to be on iOS and Android, but it seems like it might be coming out on iOS first. You can pre-order it now. It is in essence what everybody thought that has been thinking about this. Like, it's not going to be Mario Kart like you know it. It is going to be a smartphone interpretation of Mario Kart. So a portrait game where you're basically using your finger or your thumb to swipe left or right to kind of control the cart, right? You're going forward and you're moving left and right to control the cart. It looks okay. I mean, it's going to be full of microtransactions and stuff like that would be my expectation.
Yeah.
And so if you didn't think that this game was going to be that, like, I love you, but you were way too hopeful. Nintendo were very unhappy with the money made from Super Mario Go
Run,
and that was a pay. Like you got like a first few levels and you paid for it. They're not going to do that again. So this game is going to be full of in-app purchases. And let me tell you, I want to give you a breakdown of the available in-app purchases. We have rubies at 3 times 3 times 10 times 23 times 48 times 75 and times 135, and they are at varying prices from $1.99 to $38.99. There are two things called Gold Pass, which is $4.99, and something called Special Offer, which is $19.99. So it seems like maybe buying tracks and buying rubies to give you lives or other things. The game is free to start with in-app purchase available, is what it says. So there's going to be a ton of things that you can buy, and it's going to be a bunch of different microtransaction mechanics, and I'm sure that's just the way it's going to be. It looks like from the screenshots that you need like different points to unlock different carts. It's going to be like a in-app purchase festival over there on Mario Kart Tour. But I bet it's going to be really nice, and it's going to be a nice little simple game to play. There is another Nintendo game that came out recently, didn't really make much of a splash, and I actually have not played it, which is Dr. Mario. Have you played the Dr. Mario iOS game, Federico?
No, I haven't. No. Never been a fan, really.
Dr. Mario isn't my jam, which is why I didn't play it. And I tried downloading it, and I opened it, and it's like, you're not connected to the internet. And I was just like, oh, go away, Nintendo.
And that's like puzzle games, right? Like
Yes, it's closer to Tetris than anything else.
Okay.
But Mario Kart Tour is one that I will be checking out because I tend to like these kinds of games anyway, right? It's like a simple, quick iOS game. And we'll just see just how in-app purchasey it is.
I enjoyed the comments of some Apple observers that I follow on Twitter, or that sometimes pop up in my timeline of why isn't Nintendo making actual, paid up front iOS games? Well, guess why? Because they have a console, and that's, they're using iOS games for what they're good at so far to drive sales of the real games on the Nintendo Switch, which is selling and going really well.
If they put real Mario Kart for $5 on the App Store, how are they going to sell Mario Kart for $40 on a Nintendo Switch, where they get all the money, rather than having to hand over some to Apple?
Yeah.
Are we surprised this isn't being held for Apple Arcade?
I would expect Nintendo still think they can make more money with in-app purchase than they can with Apple Arcade.
Okay.
Plus, this game is not going to be exclusive, and Apple want that.
Right. Okay.
So,
Myke, you have some folding phone news again for some reason.
Yeah. As expected, the Huawei Mate 10 has officially been delayed. So,
what a shocker.
Huawei has said there is no possibility of a September launch date, but they are certain it will launch by the end of the year. We're at the end of August, and we still don't have a defined date, it would seem, about when the Galaxy Fold is coming out, but Samsung have said September, so,
soon.
It's going to be a big episode when that thing finally comes out. So I'm excited still, but who knows?
You said the perfect thing about the Galaxy Fold, that everyone will want to see it, and that is how I feel about it. I want to see it, I want to fold it a few times, and I want to hand it back to you. So I'm looking forward to that interaction.
There's a pre-registration page in China, but I can't really do anything about that right now.
All right, we're going to talk about iOS 13.1, the beta that surprised, I think, just about everybody. But first, I want to tell you about our second sponsor. This episode of Connected is brought to you by Hello. Hello makes insanely comfortable buckwheat pillows. I don't know if you've tried a buckwheat pillow, but it's actually pretty different from like your regular fluffy pillows because it supports your head and neck. It doesn't collapse under the weight of your head like a traditional pillow. I think we've all had that, right? You toss and turn in the middle of the night because your pillow has been squished by your head. Buckwheat pillows, they don't do that. Hello stays cool and dry compared to the feather or foam pillows we're used to. Plus, it tends to breathe better, meaning it doesn't get all warm and humid. So there's no more flipping to the cool side of the pillow. You can add or remove filling to suit your needs, so your pillow can be just the way you like it. And it actually turns out buckwheat pillows have been around a long time. They're very popular in places like Japan, and apparently they also appear on the pillow menus at fancy hotels. Myke, you seem to be in a fancy hotel. Is there a pillow menu?
No, and I miss my buckwheat pillow. I have a hollow pillow at home, and I hate the pillows in this hotel, and I want my hollow pillow back, and I cannot wait to be sleeping on it the next time I sleep. I don't know exactly when that's going to be yet, but I leave San Francisco today. But I cannot wait to be back home on my hollow pillow.
Hello is made in the USA with quality construction and materials. They use certified organic cotton for their cases, which are cut and sewn for durability, and the buckwheat is grown and milled right here in the US. So here's the deal. You can sleep on a Hello pillow for 60 nights, and then if you decide it's not for you, you can send it back for a refund. Just go to hellopillow.com/connected right now to get and try your own buckwheat pillow. That's HULLO Pillow, hellopillow.com/connected. And if you buy more than one, so maybe you and a special friend, they have a special discount for up to $20 off depending on what size you're looking at. They have free, fast shipping with every order, and 1% of all profits are donated to the Nature Conservancy. Give it a try. If you love it, you keep it, and if you don't, just send it back. Head on over to hellopillow.com/connected. Our thanks to Hello for their support of this show and Relay FM. All right, Federico, walk us through the last 24 hours of iOS 13 and now 13.1.
Oh, God. So we were all expecting to see iOS 13 Beta 9 yesterday or sometimes this week. Instead, Apple surprised us, and before iOS 13 is even out, they have released the first beta of iOS 13.1. So the next major point update to iOS 13 is already in testing with developers and now with the public, because the public beta is also out. And iOS 13.0, the basic version, also still in beta. But we're not sure what's going to happen, in the sense that speculation right now suggests that Apple needed to finalize iOS 13.0 in order to install it on the new iPhones that are supposedly right now currently in production in China for release in September. So iOS 13 is pretty much done. It's pretty much, whatever Beta 8 or a slightly updated version of Beta 8 that Apple has, that's been wrapped up. That's done, and it's going to be installed on the new iPhones, and it's going to be released to the public as iOS 13. The problem is that some of the features that Apple promised as part of the iOS 13 fall update were removed from iOS 13 beta a few weeks ago, namely audio sharing with AirPods, automations in shortcuts, conversional shortcuts, basically the ability to interact back and forth with a shortcut using Siri, and a bunch of other features that were removed, and we were all expecting them to come back eventually in iOS 13 Beta 9 or Beta 10 or whatever, and instead have been rolled into iOS 13.1. So those features are coming back, but they're coming back in iOS 13.1. We don't know when iOS 13.1 will launch to the public. So in looking at previous trends and previous patterns, we know that, for example, last year, iOS 12.1, which also contained new emoji, launched at the end of October. And I think it was pre-installed on the new iPad Pros. Now, does Apple want to release iOS 13.1 at the end of October? A full month, probably even more, 45 days or something, after the theoretical release of iOS 13. I guess we're all expecting iOS 13 to launch on or around September 16th. Does Apple want to wait a month and a half to push this update? Can it come out earlier than that, maybe? We don't know. So if you guys allow me, I prepared a list of all the features that I spotted in iOS 13.1, and I guess we can have a conversation about these features as well as my plans for the iOS review, because this whole thing is forcing me to change my plans. We're going to talk about that. So the features that have been pushed to iOS 13.1 are the ability to share an ETA using Maps. This was removed from 13, now in 13.1. Shortcuts automations have come back. They are available in 13.1. The ability to run shortcuts inside the Home app. So as part of HomeKit automations, you can now run shortcut actions. Conversational shortcuts, as I mentioned, the ability to interact with shortcuts actions inside Siri. So things like choose from list or ask for input, or even parameters from third-party actions in shortcuts. Those are now exclusive to 13.1. If you try and do the same in iOS 13, the Shortcuts app will open instead, as in iOS 12. Audio sharing with AirPods coming back in 13.1. And then there's a new features. Oh, and also I think I spotted the new gesture to select multiple items in a table view. So, for example, messages in Mail or notes in the Notes app. In theory, you should be able to do that by just swiping on them with 2 fingers. So, put 2 fingers on the screen, swipe down or up, and you select multiple items instead of having to edit and then select them. In 13.1, this gesture behaves as Apple promised, in that you can just put 2 fingers down and select the items. In 13 beta 8, you still needed to tap the edit button first and then swipe with 2 fingers to select. So that gesture is a little smoother, a little more intuitive in 13.1. There's also new features that are not part of iOS 13, but that will be part of iOS 13.1, at least in the first beta. There's new icons for HomeKit accessories, new animations for HomeKit accessories, which look really nice. You can create an SSH key in Shortcuts. So if you want to connect to a server, you don't want to use a password, you can now create a key using RSA and that other method, EA something, I don't remember the full name. And also there's a new, so the new volume indicator, the new volume slider in iOS 13, that's still gonna ship.
It's nice.
It's very nice.
Thank goodness they got something in.
Still gonna ship in 13, but in 13.1, you're gonna get sort of a multiple custom flavors depending on the accessory that you're controlling the volume for.
Ooh.
So when you change the volume on the AirPods, the slider is gonna have an AirPods icon. When you change the volume on the HomePod, it's gonna have a HomePod icon. There's custom icons for different types of Beats headphones. It looks really nice. And that's about pretty much everything that I found in 13.1.
I have so many questions, Federico. So many questions.
Okay.
So you said iOS 13, you believe, dev beta 8, I think it's public beta 7. That feels like what iOS 13.0 is going to be. Clearly, Apple had to move the goalpost to get that done, right? So I guess our assumption is that 13 is required for the new phones, that whatever new stuff is required for these new phones in a couple of weeks, they can't backport that to 12, and they want to launch with a new version number, as they've always done. Mm-hmm. That all makes sense to me, but it does raise questions in my mind about maybe did Apple bite off more than it could chew in this release, or does it say something about like the speed of Apple's software development cycle? Like, what is, in your mind, what's like the big lesson here in them splitting so much stuff out of 13 and pushing it down the road a little bit? Because they've done this before, right? It's like group FaceTime is an example. iMessage in the cloud was an example. I think the year before that. Big headline features, they got pushed to a later release. They've done this before, but it seems like almost anything good in 13 is not actually going to be in 13. It'll be in 13.1. I don't know. What do you walk away thinking about that?
I guess that for the things that I can say, because there's conversations going on, right? When you have friends that work at Apple, you try and gain some of the background knowledge. So there are, things that I wouldn't want to repeat on the show, but my general sense is that it is part of that. It is, as you say, sort of, Apple over-promised a little for some features that clearly needed more time. For example, the Maps ETA or the Shortcuts automations and all that kind of stuff. I think it's sort of a sign of how sometimes, when managers make decisions and they don't have a clear sense maybe of all the ramifications that the decisions have in terms of shipping features on time. And I think maybe someday we will be able to talk about how some of these features are, the main problem was a lack of communication between teams at Apple. And the reason why maybe some actions got removed from Shortcuts, because maybe the communication between the different teams involved prevented those actions from shipping. I think what I walk away with is that having a plan, a solid plan for which features to ship on time continues to be an exercise for Apple. They're not perfect at this. I think they, compared to last year where some features got pushed back to 12.4, if I'm not mistaken, or 12.3. I think having most of them, if not all of them, come back by the first point update, I think that's a good sign. So maybe Apple didn't plan exactly right, but they still overall did better than the iOS 12 cycle. And I want to see...
They were closer to the mark.
They were closer than last year. And I want to see... I get the sense that 13.1 may come sooner than 12.1 did. I have a feeling that we won't have to wait 45 days for it to ship after 13 does. But is that a week? Is that, 2 weeks? I don't think it's going to be a day one patch, as some people are calling it. So the day one patch, this is a common term in the video game industry where a video game maker has to submit a version of the game for, approval purposes and to get it printed on discs or stuff like that. But then they have already started working on the first patch of the game. So as soon as you put the disc in, you're required to go through a day one patch because the physical version that you have requires an update that has already been released digitally through servers. Mm-hmm. And the idea here would be that in the case of Apple, we don't have physical discs, but we have physical phones. And those phones may have an outdated version of iOS 13. I don't think Apple has the time to ship a day one patch, especially because they...
And it wouldn't make sense to do it as 13.1 anyway. It would just be 13.
Exactly. So I think we're going to have to wait, but maybe not as long as in previous years. Though right now, that's just my interpretation of things that I hear, through the air, through birds, and we'll see how it goes. But I feel optimistic, even though this whole thing basically, I don't want to say destroyed my plans, but it was quite a day yesterday.
But does 13 itself, the 13 like beta 8 or whatever, that I don't even know if anybody can even beta test anymore because 13.1 seems to have just like swallowed up the dev channel. Has that felt like it was in a releasable state before the 13.1 beta?
It is in a releasable state, but it's not as good as 12, as 12.0, I think. Which, part of the problem for me right now is having to revise some of the impressions that I shared in, for example, the performance section of my review that I already wrote. Because now I'm dealing with a version that is not out yet, and I was under the assumption that things would still get better before the final release. And I think one of the big features that we didn't mention, and one of the reasons that also Apple was able to sort of pull back from new features and release 13 in this state, is they have completely reversed the new file format of iCloud Drive. Early in the iOS 13 beta cycle, they upgraded iCloud Drive to a new format. They actually changed the path in the file system for the application document folders. And that change allowed for at least two features that Apple promised as coming to files. The ability to pin a file so that it would always stay cached on your device, downloaded offline. And the second major feature, shared folders. So collaborative folders in iCloud Drive. But because Apple had to reverse and go back to the older iCloud Drive format, those features have been pulled. They're still not part of iOS 13.1. And that, I would say, is where Apple really, I think, messed up their timeline. Because all those other features, the shortcuts automations, Maps ETA, audio sharing, conversational shortcuts, even though it is, it is not ideal that they were promised as coming with the first version. They're still coming within a relatively short time frame, I would say. But the files changes, the fact that they're not in 13.1 beta 1 makes me suspicious of the fact that maybe we'll have to wait longer, if not until next year, which that would be bad. Shared folders and pinning files in iCloud Drive, those were highly anticipated features, especially the shared folders. And it would be bad for Apple having to wait until iOS 14 in 2020.
Yeah, that would be sad for everybody. One thing you mentioned this, but I kind of want to rewind just for a second. The idea of like the day one patch, Apple does have to put some software on these phones that are in factories, right? And if this phone is going to ship, in 3 weeks, like we think it's going to, the cutoff for like a beta isn't when the phone ends up at your doorstep. It's when the phones are like done in a factory. And so Apple's deadline for iOS 13, I don't know when it is. I'd imagine it's soon if it hasn't, maybe that was a factor in getting this ready. So I tend to agree with you. I think we will see 13.1 pretty quickly, probably not on day one, but I would imagine within, the first 7 to 10 days, maybe we see this roll out. It's weird, but I guess Apple would prefer to do this over shipping something that's like really buggy on brand new phones, right? Like they don't want to do that. And if they're stuck with not being able to use 12, this is maybe their only option. And I'm sure that was a difficult decision to make, but probably the right one in the long run.
So what is this doing to your review then? Are you are you pulling out the 13.1 features for review, or are you going to be including those because it is like technically iOS 13 anyway?
I will be including them. My current plan is to publish the review the day that iOS 13.0 comes out, but still cover features coming to 13.1. Maybe not to the same extent as the features actually available that day in 13, but still cover them and talk about them, because I feel like they were part of the original iOS 13 plan. And I get the sense that they will be coming back sooner rather than later. So I think it makes sense for me to cover them. It does add, all of this though, adds a layer of complication to the review that I did not foresee. So as I mentioned, I will have to explain up front, for example, how the review was primarily written and tested while using iOS 13.0 beta, but towards the end of the process, I upgraded to 13.1. I will have to explain how that is still in beta, how that is still not out, and I will have to explain the small differences between iOS 13.0 and iOS 13.1 and find a clear way to communicate, this is what you're getting today, this is what you're getting, for example, in 2 weeks. Let me give you an example. On the iPad, in Apple Music, in 13, the now playing screen opens as a floating panel at the side of the music app. It looks like a floating panel. It's detached from the top edge. It's detached from the bottom edge of the screen, but it doesn't actually let you grab it and move it across the screen. It's fixed in position. It's weird. It looks like a floating panel, but it doesn't actually float. In 13.1, they have changed the design slightly so that it doesn't look like a floating panel anymore. It's completely attached to the bottom section of the toolbar. And this is a small difference, but it's something that I gotta explain, because the people reading my review will probably have 13.0 on the day that 13 comes out. And on that version, that floating panel looks weird, but I already know that it's gonna look not weird as much when 13.1 comes out. So there's a lot of consideration that I gotta go through, all the difference that I find. I'm keeping a list in reminders right now and try and have mentions of things like, oh, by the way, in a month, or if Apple gives me a release date, I would like them to share a 13.1 release date at the iPhone event, if possible. But I will be able to say things like on September 30th or whatever, with the 3.1 update, this feature will look different. So I was not expecting to do this. And of course, in the shortcuts section, I will cover conversational shortcuts. I will cover automations, but I need to be mindful of how many examples do I want to share for something that is technically not out yet, and most people will not be able to use it because they don't want to install the beta, but it's still important to talk about because it's part of a bigger story around iOS 13. So that, of course, the fact that I'm running behind schedule doesn't help, but it's something that, it'll get done, as always.
I think that's the right way to handle it, because other than this time gap, however long it is, 13.0 and 13.1, those details are going to be lost to time, right? If someone is reading this in 6 months or a year,
right, then
it doesn't really matter.
Which it's probably going to take them that long to read it because it's not small.
That's true. And so I think the balance of sorting out 13.0 and 13.1, it's important, but I don't think it's like something that you should totally like destroy the next several weeks of your life over either.
Which is going to happen anyway, but
true,
still,
sure.
Yeah.
We know you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I just want to warn listeners in that you may recall when I was younger and innocent 2 months ago, really, I thought that my review would be the shortest one I'd ever made. Well, let me tell you, having two operating systems in the same review doesn't make it shorter. It makes it double what it usually is.
Uh-oh. This is news. Wait a second. What's happening?
It happened that I thought, there's so much overlap between iOS and iPadOS. I can write a small review. I can make it smaller than in previous years. Shorter, more compact. I'm happy that I think I was able to move away from the technical language and the technical jargon and all the API discussion as much as possible. There's very, very little API talk or framework talk in this review. It is very conversational. It's based on experience. It's on the same style of my Beyond the Tablet story from May. But there are just so many changes in iOS 13 and iPadOS that I completely misunderstood the scope of the story. And this will be the most extensive, longest review I've ever done, by far.
Oh.
It's going to be the biggest thing I've ever done, really.
Oh, dear. Oh, boy.
It is... it's massive. But and this is considering how the Mac Stories team is helping me with all those stories that we've been publishing on Mac Stories. We needed them because I will not be able to cover those features in my review. So Sidecar, Maps, Sign in with Apple, those features are not covered in the review. Still, it's the longest, deepest, and I think hopefully best one that I've done to date. I'm really happy with what I'm doing so far, but it's a lot of work and I'm still writing some chapters. I'm very happy with the fact that I decided to save the shortcuts chapter for last. Imagine if I had to write the whole thing when automations were not available and I thought that 13.0 was going to be the only version shipping. I'm going to finish the shortcuts chapter this week, and there's at that point there will be the grab bag chapter and the conclusion left to do. So I'm shooting for middle of next week to finish writing everything. I'm already editing the review, of course, and I'm getting some excellent help from Ryan, obviously, like every year. So I'm writing a day, editing at night, but the whole thing is just massive. And I switched text editors. Yesterday, I moved from Drafts to IA Writer because I need to speed up the process of collecting screenshots and including screenshots in the review. So I'm using the same method that I used back in May for the Beyond the Tablet story. There's going to be, of course, fancy videos and animations. We're working on some visual changes for the review itself, new formatting tools, new elements.
Because you just can't stop yourself, can you? You can't stop yourself from doing that every year. Every year you say, no, I'm not going to do any of that. And then there you go, doing it again.
But I'm pushing myself maybe a little too much right now. But also I don't want to complain too much because I love doing this. I am stressed. It's a weird, I have a weird combination of feelings right now. I am incredibly stressed and tired, but I also love what I'm doing. So it's like I'm punishing myself, but I also love doing that with text, not with anything else. So yeah, 13.1, big change. I will have to revise the things that I say in certain places, but I think it's doable, and I think it's the right call to include it. We'll see.
All right, we're going to talk about Apple's changes to the Siri privacy framework. I don't know. The Siri privacy stuff. We're going to talk about that after I tell you about our third sponsor, DoorDash. Whether you're super focused at work or having a chill day and forgot to do your meal prep, you still need to eat, and with DoorDash, you can have dinner from your favorite restaurant delivered right to your door. Ordering is easy. You open the DoorDash app, choose what you want, and have your food delivered to you wherever you are. Your favorite pizza place, or in my case, favorite taco place, probably already on DoorDash because there are over 250,000 restaurants in over 3,000 cities listed in the app. That's door-to-door delivery in all 50 states and Canada, so you can order from your local go-tos or choose from your favorite national restaurants like Chipotle, Wendy's, Chick-fil-A, Cheesecake Factory, etc. We've been using DoorDash, like I said, favorite taco place is on there, and so I can be busy in the studio at work and have lunch delivered. Super easy. It tells you what's going on in the app so you know when to expect it. It's really useful and really easy to use. Right now, our listeners can get $5 off their first order of $15 or more when you download the DoorDash app and enter the promo code CONNECTED. That's $5 off your first order when you download DoorDash from the App Store and use the promo code CONNECTED when you sign up in the app. Download it now and start planning your dinner. Don't forget the promo code CONNECTED gets you $5 off your first order. Our thanks to DoorDash for their support of Connected and all of Relay FM. Okay, we need to talk about a story. We missed the first part of the story because it's been a couple of weeks since we've had a regular episode. But at the end of July, The Guardian reported that Apple was employing contractors to listen to audio samples from failed Siri interactions. So what was going on is Apple was recording Siri conversations, so it would have audio from individuals, including when Siri was falsely triggered, and contractors were listening to those and comparing them with computer-generated transcripts to understand what was happening with Siri, why it was misfiring or why it was misunderstanding. Users were not alerted to this. It was on for everyone. Apple said data about the users' names, locations, Apple ID, etc. were not part of the review. But The Guardian, if you read that original article, people were listening to some pretty, private things, and it's not great. The company at the time commented that it was a very small random subset of these things. Less than 1% of daily Siri activations were used for grading, typically only a few seconds long. We now know in Apple's press release today, which we're going to talk about, it's actually 0.2% of interaction. So a very small number. But if you think about how many times, I can't even imagine how many times Siri must be activated a day. That is a whole lot of audio being shared with contractors. And so this has kind of been in the news. After this story came out, Apple said that it was pausing the Siri grading program until it could figure out what it needed to do. And today, Apple is back with changes they say they are making to this program. And I think I'm going to run through these real quick, and then we can kind of talk about what we think. So first, coming in a future software update, users will opt in to this program, and the default will be that Apple no longer retains audio recordings of Siri interactions. So if you do nothing after this future update, and they didn't clarify what that would be, if it'd be Catalina in iOS 13, or if we'll get a point update some point down the road, whatever it is, after that update is out, if you do nothing, Apple will not keep audio recordings of your Siri interactions. However, you can opt in to them keeping those audio files. However, Apple will continue to use computer-generated transcripts to help Siri improve. That cannot be opted out of. If you use Siri, those interactions could become computer-generated transcripts for use later by the company. Apple has also moved this from a contractor service to in-house employees. That cost some 300 contractors their jobs in Ireland, which is not great. Maybe there was a way Apple could have hired some of those folks. Maybe they did, but still a lot of people out of work, which is never a good thing. But it's in-house now. And this is like a gateway to a bigger conversation I don't really want to have today, but Casey Newton at The Verge has been doing some really great reporting on Facebook and how their content moderation team very often are made up of contractors, and they're not employees. They don't get benefits, and that's a practice across Silicon Valley that is pretty gross, and I think everyone should change. But again, we're going to leave that today. So your opt-in for audio recordings, computer-generated transcripts will still be on for everybody, and the grading process will be suspended until this update is out and users start to opt in. So they're not turning this back on the way it was. They're going to be using the new system. So there's a bunch of links in the show notes about this. The original reporting today, Apple's press release, a K-Base article about what Siri grading actually is. Because look, we all know that all the voice assistants, but maybe Siri in particular, it struggles sometimes, and they're using this real-world data to improve it. I understand that need, but I think Apple went too far in what they were doing to improve it. And I'm curious what you guys think about this. Myke, what about you?
Well, I mean, they got caught with their tail between their legs. Like the original, very, very original comment that Apple gave to The Guardian, they were kind of like, yeah, no worries. Like, we're just going to keep doing it. It's not a problem. And then it started to a storm started to get kicked up, really. And then they have had to backtrack over this in multiple ways, right? Like then they were giving additional statements. Then they said they were going to stop it. And now they've basically apologized and they're going to change it. They're doing the right thing. Like I have no, like the computer generated transcripts, that is a bit better. And I'm intrigued to see how they're actually used, right? Because like, that's just like a thing where like, okay, but if all the text is going to go, is it any different? So I'm intrigued to see how they're going to use that. I find that to be peculiar that it can't be opted out of, right? That like, there's always going to be some element of my speech sent to Apple if I use Siri. I don't think that I have to give them that. Like, I don't think that I need to be responsible for making their software better. Like, I don't know why I, as a customer or every single customer, must give their information to make software better. Like that just seems like a strange thing to me, but this is at least better than what they were doing. But like, do you know, Stephen, like how those computer generated transcripts are used? Like, are they good? Does it say if they're going to be given to people to look at?
Yeah. So the grading will continue with the opt-in audio if you decide to do that, but also these automatically generated transcripts. So they will go to now employees, not contractors, in the Siri grading process. And I feel the way you feel about this. Like, I don't love it. The Guardian article, if you go and read it, it says these interviewees that the Guardian had said that, people can listen to like intimate moments in someone's house and that sort of thing. So like that sort of thing on a transcript is maybe less impactful, but I think that there should be a way for people to understand what actually is being sent. And I don't know how you do that.
So from the knowledge base, it says computer-generated transcripts are used to improve Siri and its reliability. These transcripts are used in machine learning training to improve Siri, determine common usage patterns, and update language and understanding models. The transcripts may also be used to resolve critical problems that affect Siri reliability. By default, Apple will no longer retain audio, blah, blah, blah. Computer-generated transcripts of your audio requests may be used to improve. These transcriptions are associated with a random identifier, not your Apple ID, for up to 6 months. If you do not want transcripts of your Siri audio recordings to be retained, you can disable Siri dictation in settings. So some of the basics of this are not changing, but they are making parts of it better, right? Like the fact that it's not going to be contractors, so maybe they can do more about the way that things will be shared. They're clarifying a little bit more about maybe loosening some of the ways that they were, some of the information they were assigning, because the Guardian story made it seem like they were assigning way more than just this random identifier. And it does, Apple's not being, they're not saying what else they're keeping, but it is just like if a machine is reading this information and it's getting better and then that's it, I'm fine with it. But there is still a part of me that's like, yeah, but like, do I have to be your test case? Like,
right.
And I know how this stuff works, but it's still a little bit like, oh, so now I can't use Siri if I don't want to do that, which is still a strange thing. But they are at least tightening up a lot of the other problems that I had around this, where Apple were really kind of defensive initially, and they have now made changes that are more in line with their typical stance around privacy, which the original case was not it at all.
Yeah, I mean, Apple just blew this, right? Like, saying they got caught between their legs, like, is an understatement. They say they get to this in their press release, but Apple says it has a certain standard and that this program didn't live up to that. And I think it's much closer to that now. But yeah, this bit about the transcripts, I think, deserves more explanation and maybe even some examples from Apple of like, this is what these sorts of things look like. Because without that, it's just like up to our imagination what they're capturing, right? And then that, I think, is something they still need to tidy up a little bit. Federico, you live in a house full of HomePods. Has this made you reconsider your use of Siri, or are you still comfortable with it?
There's an answer that I would like to give, but it's not a good answer for a public podcast. I'm trying to frame it in a way that doesn't make me sound like an idiot. I know that I should, right, get upset about it, but it's just I think Apple is doing the right thing here, and I think it was, I don't know if it was a scandal or not, but I think I'm happy that they were called out on it, and I'm happy that they're making changes. I just didn't get upset about it because I didn't have the time to get upset about it. It happened while I was on vacation, and my gut reaction was, yeah, whatever, this will get fixed. I don't particularly worry about the fact that somebody listened to my queries because I know how I use my HomePods, right? I know that I use them to play music and save reminders and stuff like that. I don't send messages with Siri because my accent is terrible for sending messages. With Siri, it doesn't pick up most of the words correctly. Yeah, exactly. See, Siri just activated on my HomePod.
Right, and that's the problem. It's not for me, my problem was never sharing with Siri what I'm asking, like sharing of Apple what I'm asking Siri. It was how many times my HomePod is collecting information that I never knew it was collecting because I didn't ask it.
Right. And I get it, and you're totally right. No, and I know that this is how any belief of privacy dies. It dies when people just stop caring about it. I'm just saying that in another period of the year, I would have gotten upset about it. I didn't because it was the summer.
It's okay to have priorities. Like, it's perfectly fine.
And No, I feel bad because I feel like there's an expectation when you're, to some degree, a public figure commenting on technology. In this case, Apple. It is sort of your responsibility to we talked about this before, to have an opinion, to have a stance on something that happens. But if you just ask me personally, as Federico, were you concerned? I wasn't, because I was on vacation. And that is my completely honest answer. My professional answer is it was upsetting, and I'm glad that Apple is fixing it. It seems like they're doing all that they're supposed to do. Maybe they should be doing more. And I'm curious to see, from a design standpoint, what the permission will actually look like. Will they be displayed during setup? Will they be communicated clearly? Just like today's press release and FAQ is communicated very clearly. It's written in plain English. It's, it reads like something that Steve Jobs would write. I remember how Steve Jobs used to communicate, with those public open letters on apple.com. Used to communicate things very clearly in plain English. And this letter, this apology is in that style. It's explained very concisely. So I think Apple is doing the right thing here. I want to see what it'll look like in settings, what it'll look like in setup. Will it be hidden so that most people will not find the option? I don't know. But personally speaking, as I wasn't even on podcasts. I was on vacation. I didn't write about it on Mac Stories. I wasn't particularly concerned because it happened at the wrongest time for me in the summer. But if it happened, say, in March, I would have been all over this. But sometimes you got priorities, and so sometimes you're at the beach and you don't have time to worry about digital assistant privacy. And that's my honest answer.
All right. I think that does it for this week. If you want to find links to the stuff we talked about, they're on the web, relay.fm/connected/258, or in your podcast app of choice. While you're at our website, you can do a couple of things. You can send us an email with feedback or follow-up, and then there's links also to our Twitter profiles. You can follow Myke on Twitter as IMYKE. Myke is the host of many shows here on Relay FM, so you can go check those out. Federico, who is back, he's on Twitter at Viticci, Viticci, the editor-in-chief of MacStories.net, the future home of the iOS 13 review. If you're bored this evening, go read the iOS 10 review. It's still out there. Go learn about iOS 10.
You really got to go far back there. 12 would have been fine.
Oh, I was trying to think, what was the first one?
Okay.
8?
9.
9? Yeah. Go read the iOS 9 review and see how far we've come. You can follow me on Twitter as ISMH, and I write at 512pixels.net. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Eero, Hello, and DoorDash. And until next time, gentlemen, say goodbye.
Arrivederci.
Go to stjude.org/connected. Bye-bye.
Adios.